cloud. Okay. Yay.
All right. Well, since the first thing on our agenda is people sharing, let's just go right to Lane, what you requested. Are these previous minutes, correct?
Yeah, and the first, I wanted to look first at the ones from the December 3rd, October 31st. But there were, my suggestion probably from this point forward is probably a good time at the beginning of each meeting, just to quickly review. I don't think we have to go through the formalized, accepted or whatever it is, approved meetings, but it helps to make sure that we picked up on things we meant to make decisions about. And if we didn't, then we explain we've tabled that for future or something, so we don't have loose ends. So
Okay.
in this one, I realized as I went through that this is actually the from the 24th. So this is the
Correct.
previous week. And I don't think there was anything outstanding here.
I didn't see anything either.
Okay, so I'm reasonably sure.
So everything that you haven't read, I think we've all addressed it and are in the process of addressing.
Yes, or yes. So that's what I'll go through for the next when I'm working through the meetings for tonight. I'll just go through and make sure that we are working on them, or like I say, have tabled them for some reason.
Okay, I'll just stop sharing that then.
Super. So then I can just share from tonight, or I should, excuse me, again, the 31st. Let me do that. And for me, I realized one reason I wanted to do that is because I realized there may be some things that I had missed. So everybody able to see this? That big enough?
Can you make it just a wee bit larger?
I can. Let me just move my make my Zoom bigger. You Zoom. Oh, that's probably a little bit too big.
That's too big.
That's
lovely, but
too big. I will zoom to 200. There we go. That
yeah,
better?
that's much better. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
You bet. And I realized there were some things we started talking about before we actually got into maybe listed agenda items. One of them was that about getting the fire department more involved. And Chris, you're on the agenda.
I'm in the process of that. I have a meeting Tuesday night that will be addressed.
Fabulous. One thing I did put at the end of this meeting, I noticed on Nextdoor for the ferry outages, that there are people that thought that the only way for you to get the outage alerts is via email. You can get text only. And you had to kind of figure out how to do that. But I wrote up the instructions for someone on Nextdoor. And so I put the instructions down here also, so that if anyone asks you, you do have to put your email first. But after you do that, then you can say you only want to receive text emails.
You can also get it direct through the Twitter account.
Yes, but these are people who are trying to
Twitter phobic.
either they're flying under the radar or whatever's going on with them. They really wanted the lowest tech approach.
I hate Twitter. I don't do Twitter, so I
Yeah.
totally relate to that.
It's those Twitter alerts are also available on the community website. That's
Right,
part
but
of it.
what that's sort of if you knew it was going on, you would go check, but these alerts come to get you.
Mhm.
So that's one reason I like them.
Yep.
But it did take a little bit of time for me to figure out how to get them turned on, and I'm pretty computer savvy, so I realized maybe most people would use a few clues. So maybe sometime, Alan, if you got around to it,
Sure.
where on the webpage we could just put these instructions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Good idea.
anyway. LIFAC. So we talked about a couple of things with LIFAC and with trying to get some feedback to Public Works. And I marked this in yellow because I didn't really see that we made a decision. So we talked about, one thing we talked about was a petition. But I didn't write down that we'd actually decided to do that, or
Yeah, we haven't decided yet. We just talked about the capability of doing it.
we could, yeah.
Right. And I had a big discussion with Rama this week as she was contacting me, and she wanted to have kind of an update on things as far as LIFAC goes. And I think that I think an island petition sounds like a good idea. I don't know that for the public doc per se,
Mhm.
I don't think that LIFAC is who we should be talking to. I think that for the public doc, I think that petition should go to the Parks Department. If that's who we're going to try to engage with. I think that a petition, after this coming LIFAC meeting, it might be very appropriate to put a petition together, petitioning the county to come up with a better, faster method of providing alternate transportation. Because I contacted Public Works, and I think Public Works we should not be talking to. I think we should be talking to LIFAC, because LIFAC is our representation on ferry issues to the county council. And Public Works works for the county council, kind of, they're the ones that make the rules. So just going to Public Works and calling and talking to Public Works employees is probably not going to get us super far. I think that our better thing will be to it will be to, and I think attending this week's LIFAC meeting on Wednesday. I know that's a hard thing for Chris, because that's at the same time his Bible study is, but if we could support Chris by getting several of us to go to the LIFAC meeting and, think about like what we would like to say. I believe that at this meeting, Richie Hudson is supposed to be doing a report on the ferry outage. And one thing that I am planning on doing is and I have already asked Rama about this, and is for LIFAC to make a direct request to the county for how much this outage cost, in terms of how much it actually costs to get the docks down there, get them deployed, get them in, get them out, and all of those things. Because I just think that this whole thing was so expensive that's why they never do it, because it costs so bloody much. I've lived here for 18 years, and this is only the second time they've put the docks in for an outage. So I just think I am going to bring that up. I would appreciate if other people could attend and think of some of the other things that we might like to address during the public comment time on this. And I also understand, and this might be better for you, Chris, but LIFAC is going to hold off on they usually do their public comments at the first of the meeting. They're going to do it at the end of the meeting after Richie's had all the time to, do his report on the outage and stuff like that, because they feel that there may be people that have questions about the outage. So, and that way, if you have some kind of a prepared thing, it's going to be more of like instead of having to have something prepared and in writing, it'll be okay at least to ask the questions. And they don't usually allow time for doing that, but I think they're going to do that at the next meeting. So I'm sorry I took up so much time.
Well, I think the reason we didn't make a decision because there's a lot to consider.
Yeah. And yeah. And I think that, LIFAC's board will still be there November. I don't think that everyone is going off the board in January. I think that it's going to take a while to fill some of those positions. I don't know I don't know for sure if the whole board the 3 people are leaving the board in January or not. I know that Rama, who's the chair, and Charles Bailey, who is the vice chair, both term out, but I don't know for sure if their term ends on January 1st. That's what I don't know.
Mary, I appreciate your insight on that, and I agree with you 100% that LIFAC is definitely the way to go. It is the fastest possible route of having any practical effect in the Whatcom County government, because that's who they are filtering everybody through. And unless we follow that, we're just adding layer upon layer of bureaucracy and time needed. So it really is the most logical place. And I, in support of, if there is a island-wide petition to say, you need to do something at the docks sooner than the new docks being put into place, and get everybody on board on the island saying, hey, we want this now, not later. That'll go a long ways toward just the emergency response that we should be able to access super quick, super easy. And if there's any way they can make that happen, LIFAC is our only hope of making that happening for sure. So I'm in agreement with that 100%. Love it.
Yeah.
What else on the old notes, Lane, do we have? Unless somebody else wants to talk about that.
So this means, let me just make sure I can make notes from what we talked about then. So right now, we don't have a step 1 for soliciting, like how you make a petition happen that I know of. But I don't know if we're.
What do you mean by that?
So if we were to say, okay, there's an action plan and we are going to spearhead
requesting LIFAC to act on behalf of the citizens of Lummi Island to petition the county to install emergency use docks now, not later. Something along that lines. We need to petition LIFAC to petition the county council to do something now, not later.
No, Mary.
I was thinking of asking them, will a petition from all of the island work? Will that be helpful in trying to persuade the county council to act on our behalf?
Okay, all right.
Okay, because Mary was talking about the petition actually going to Parks and Recreation for a permanent.
For the public dock, I think the petition should go to Parks and Rec, because that's who we're looking to team with for the county council. But I agree with Chris that if we do a petition to the county, and I think it would behoove us to listen to what the costs were
Yes.
Because with that, that will give us ammunition to say, this is how much it costs. Is there another way that we can make this happen without it being so expensive? And what can you come up with, county? And I think, I don't know. That's the question that I'm going to be asking at the county council, not the county council, at the LIFAC meeting. And I've contacted a couple of people that have sent emails to me about, their concerns that they experienced during the outage. And I'm going to ask for them to talk at the meeting too. And if any of you were impacted by it, that would be also a good thing. But I think it really, what is going to be said at this county council or at the LIFAC meeting this Wednesday, I think we really need to be paying attention to closely. So,
Yeah.
And Lane, in my perspective, that addresses the emergency need at the ferry terminal. I
Mhm.
still think there's a petition needed, and we've talked about for
yes,
the public dock,
Yeah.
but that's
Yes.
another petition for another organization, right?
yes,
So the first order of business is, especially strike while the iron is hot, that while we are trying to pursue a long-term solution, we know it is long-term and that won't do.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
honestly, I think at a minimum, to ask that from what Mary experienced, it would sound to me as if either the county has a brilliant plan for how to respond to these emergencies, and they just did not relay that plan to the people on the, boots on the ground, or they don't have a plan and they should have a plan. So Mary Ross is not a spokesperson for Public Works, even though it appears that she took on that role while she was sitting on the dock because everyone was asking her. But I would hope they would have a better checklist so that somebody on the ground thought that they were in charge.
yeah, that's what I didn't witness. On the Gooseberry side, I don't know what happened on the Lummi side. I would love to.
Okay, cool. So
All right,
let's,
that's a whole nother issue. So let's get back on track here.
Sorry.
No worries.
no, it was, like I say, it was, there were a lot of different pieces of this. I was trying to make sure we all had under control. So let's see, I've made some more notes there. So I think the other, we all agreed that we'll do open public meetings, but not until we've made more progress and we have some specific kind of milestones. People just want to read through that, and maybe next week we can just make sure that looks fine. Give you guys a chance to review.
I like it.
We talked about engineering drawings, but we got some feedback we'll be hopefully getting from Chris on the visit from the engineer. So I think that's okay. And the vote, how did the voting go with the mail out for whether we should continue to pursue temporary reef?
I thought most people replied to all. Mary had excellent questions with her yes, and we'll discuss that here shortly. But overall, everyone's yes, let's do something. And so figuring out how to get there as quickly as possible. So we're not like a government agency and we can actually get this done.
Lane, if you're done screen sharing, could you disconnect, please? I'm getting double everything.
I will do that.
I have my bar up except to show everybody at the top as well. It's the very top.
Oh, okay. I'm not showing myself as sharing. Are you still seeing my Word doc?
Not now, no.
Oh, okay. Yeah, then I'm not sharing.
Well, I've got double bars here too. I wonder if my screen share is on. I don't think so. Chris, do you have your screen share on?
Oh, hang on, let me see.
Yeah, there it went.
There.
That's gone.
There it went. Now we're off. Okay.
There.
I'm not sure.
Somebody
Yeah.
fixed it.
I was staring at it,
Yeah.
and I thought I wasn't, okay.
Like the time tunnel, we have multiple sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was do.
Hmm. Okay. So do we want to start working on a potential poll to the public to ask LIFAC to do that?
Say that again, Alan?
Do we want to start working on a potential poll to ask LIFAC to go to the county and ask what you were asking?
Oh,
Because
I would suggest let's wait till after this Life Act meeting.
Okay.
So we
the
get
only-
some
the only
ammo.
reason- all right, the only reason I'm saying that is putting a poll together, activating the poll takes no time, but wording it properly does. So
Okay.
that's the only reason I brought that up. So
Okay.
if you're done with Life Act, the meeting, and you want a poll, don't expect it instantly, because the wording needs to be critical.
Okay. All right, well, anything new that you guys want to share? Anybody have anything?
Let me just throw something out there. It's related to the emergency response. And I'm just passing along what a neighbor suggested to me because he knew that I was involved in the vote committee. And I'm not saying I support this necessarily, but he suggested, and I think he had heard through, I don't know, maybe looking at the meeting notes or grapevine, that there was this plan to put in the reef net boat and it was going to cost some $30,000 or something. And the suggestion was, why not contract with the water taxi, the guys that come over here from Orcas, in times when the ferry's out of service, right? Because they have the Triton, I've seen it on the Isle Air Beach, right? These are the guys that service the Willows. I think it's the same guys that caused all the heartburn by not giving people space at the dock, right? So I don't know if this is a good idea, but I felt it was presented to me, so I need to share it with you guys. And maybe this is something that, the county needs to consider for rapid response. Maybe they want to continue putting in their float and hiring out a large passenger ferry like they did this last time, but it takes several hours. But maybe they could spool up some water taxi company to move people quickly. So that I'm just throwing it out there as something that was seeded to me. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question on that. Dave, does that water taxi, how do they land people on Lummi? Where do they land them at?
Yeah, what I've seen, right, is they have this, if you go on its outer island excursions, and they come over from the cut on the north end of Orcas. And I see this boat all the time. I'm sure you've seen it. It's the Triton. It's like a catamaran and it has a ladder on the bow. So they pull up to the beach. People go down the ladder, get on the beach. It's not ideal, but it's an option, potential option, right?
But what I want to know is where they are landing people on Lummi. Are they coming all the way around to the Willows and disembarking them on? I know where they pick them up. I saw them picking them up on the mainland. But where are they landing people?
Mary,
On the island.
I don't know what they did during the outage, the ferry outage. All I know is I see them coming and going all summer long, dropping people off to the Willows on Isle Air Beach.
Yeah, I see them doing that too. And so, yeah.
Presumably they
My,
can go to any beach.
my suspicion is they're using Sunset Beach.
Right.
I've seen,
Because they are transporting people to the Willows, but like,
Yeah.
how would we drop people off at Gooseberry?
yeah,
That is the question.
Well, they'll go over there and they'll take over the dock and they'll tell everybody else to move. The
Yeah.
guy couldn't be
Yeah.
more arrogant and rude as a
yeah.
boat owner. And
Yeah,
the Willows is already dealing with them on that issue. So I love, we could hire a bunch of different folks to do this.
Yeah.
That's not where I want to go. And I don't think that's where we want to go. We have citizenry that will step up and take care of our own if we have a means to do it. We're going to do it anyways, even without a dock. I'm still going to go out there and do it. There's others like Rob Mason and others that will come up and do it. So hiring other people, if somebody else outside of the committee wants to be involved in that, or you do, I'm fine with it. I won't have anything to do with that because that's not my focus. This is, let's get it done. Let's make this happen now, at least for the emergency aspect of it, because the county won't. And then we've got the long-term dock goal as well. That just takes time. So
Yeah.
just trying to bring us back into focus on what we've already agreed to.
Yeah, no, I agree, Chris. I thought it might be an appropriate time to bring that suggestion up in the
Sure.
light of possibly.
It is a new thing.
something
Yeah.
The county could deal with, right? Because otherwise, how do we deal with it? We take up a collection of Lummi Islanders to become a member of this taxi group? I mean,
Yeah.
right? I don't think we want to go there, but anyway.
Dave, if you would send a link to the company,
Okay,
to Lane and I,
okay,
we would appreciate it.
will do, yeah.
Go ahead, Mary.
I started doing some thinking also. And there is a water taxi company out of Anacortes that has a 34 passenger landing craft. And when I went across to pick my car up after the outage, I noticed how they had the passenger ferry, how the docks were, and what they did, they just had the floats anchored out, and then the apron for the ferry landing was lowered down on top of the float. And I started thinking, and I did make a call to the landing craft water taxi company that is in Anacortes. And I asked them if they would consider even doing a contract with the county to be a standby, and they weren't really sure. They had to do some thinking, because they right now have two boats that they operate. One's a 28 passenger boat, one's a 34 passenger boat. They're both capable of going at about 22 knots, so they could make the run from Anacortes up here in probably and within an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. And if they could just put their ramp on top of the apron, people could just walk right on. There would not have a need for the docks. And if the county would call them and could get a contract, and they could be standing by instead of the Saley Sea, that would really simplify things. And then on the Gooseberry side, they could just drop their ramp onto the boat ramp, launch ramp, just like Chris does. And if the county arranged for it, they could do that. And I will send you the link for that, Alan. And because after seeing how they were doing it on that side, and then I thought, okay, well, even if the chief were there, and still was in on the Lummi side, and was stuck in the dock on the Lummi side, the county could probably work out some kind of a small ramp thing that they could lower down. They could attach from the chief's deck to just lower down. So you wouldn't have to even do a temporary dock, and we could just say, okay, county, you're taking care of it. And And once they get their regular dock in, it'll be good. And then all we need to do is just continue working on getting a public dock for recreational boaters. So that was, I don't know, I did some thinking about that a lot. So,
I think that's a great one for Life Hack again. Bring that to
Yeah,
Life Hack.
yeah,
Great
yeah.
reasoning. Alan?
Mary, you had mentioned before about there were two companies that had a do not bid agreement
Yes.
between them. Is that
Yes.
company one of those?
no,
Good.
No.
Okay.
no.
That's a good
The
thing
two
then.
companies are, it's Arrow and then the
Right. Whoever
San
this
Juan
is.
Cruises.
Right. Okay.
They're the ones that have the do not bid agreement. And I also called up, and the county is in the third year of a 5-year agreement with
Sale it.
San Juan Cruises. But it's renewable each year. I don't really understand that. So I don't know if they're trapped in a 5-year thing. And that's something I hope to clarify at the meeting,
It's
the Life Hack meeting.
it's probably a 5-year price agreement
Uh-huh,
with an each year renewal.
yeah.
That's probably
So-
what that combo is.
But I think that's something we need to pursue. And
It's also the thing that if the Whatcom chief is stuck at Lummi Island in between the dolphins and can't move or is waiting to go to Bellingham, that taxi could just drop their ramp right onto the back end of the Whatcom chief as well.
that's what I was saying. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. If
I like
it's high
that.
enough, if it's
Yeah.
high enough, or if not, then the county could put something on that end of the chief that could just, make that transition.
Yeah,
And
I pulled
people
up
could
with
just
my boat,
walk
and it's
down
not-
and
not
through
tall
it.
enough.
Yeah,
Pardon?
it's not, your boat's not tall enough, but theirs might be. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I'm sure their
Okay.
ramp's way bigger because that's a much bigger vessel.
Yeah, yeah. For a 34 passenger, I suspect it's probably at least a 40 footer. I don't know how big your boat is, Chris, but
I'm only 27. I'm small.
yeah, that's what I was thinking. But, and they're 20, they have a 22 passenger. So I don't know, but, and they're both good. I think both those boats were probably built by Munson.
And
And
it might be something that the county can continue with the Salish Sea, because that's the regular scheduled dry dock thing. And maybe also have the taxi. It's great. It's great
Well-
that you brought that up.
yeah, because it could make dry dock cheaper too. But I don't know. So anyway, but just that's my little, if Dave was suggesting that, I'm suggesting these guys, and I'll send both Lane and
Yeah,
and
that
Alan.
that sounds even better. And I think, as Chris said, those are great options for Life Hack to pursue with the county. right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
the
that-
more
but-
What we're doing.
the more options we can give them, the better.
Yeah,
Good.
so
Okay,
I'm done.
Chris?
Mhm.
All right. Well, did you all see the letter from the engineering company?
Just
Ramp
saw that
building
before the
company?
meeting, Chris.
See if I could pull that up.
That was a bit of a shocker.
I've got it on the website if you want me to pull it too.
Oh yeah, I'll just let you do it, Alan. Be easier. Bottom line is, engineering alone on something like this would cost us $10,000. And if they were to build it, it would be starting at $80,000.
Yeah,
I also emailed a picture of a dock that's surplus, a 41-foot ramp that's 4 foot wide, that they are just surplusing for just under $10,000 by itself. So there are options out there. We can buy used gangways, used ramps and such. But that gives you an idea of how much it costs to have one of these companies do it, and just for the engineering, very, very high price, which makes sense. So that's part of the reason why the county has such a difficult time getting anything done, because everything is just ridiculously high. Her concerns about the boat itself, she didn't understand that we're gonna fix it, we're gonna work on it, we're gonna make it work with whatever we do. Now, you see the ramp that he just pulled up. This one's for sale for $9,495, 41 foot. We could do it differently with this type of ramp by just having it slide off the boat on rollers and be able to lift it into place with a little gantry over the stern and cables. We could also do it hydraulics, but in my vision would just be a roll off up onto the rocks using a gantry and some cables or ropes to lift it into place. That's an option. That's a way that we could go for sure. Much simpler. And then that might be actually a better way to go if that's what we wind up doing. In my mind, it's not worth paying them any money to engineer something that, for example, is built, which is right in front of you, for $9,000, the same cost to have it engineered, and that's already been engineered and works. And it's very easy to copy stuff that's already been engineered and that we know that works. That will hold the weight of anybody going up and down it, including the gurney and 4 people holding the gurney. The lady at the engineering place made it clear that they would engineer whatever they did for 100 pounds per square foot, which exceeds all of county and state requirements for something that is public use. But again, we're not a public agency. We're not trying to do it in a public way, because if we are, we'll never get there. It'll be too high a price and it will not accomplish what we're trying to accomplish, at least in my mind. So I wanted to make sure you guys saw that, you see what they're wanting to do. I know that I can do all of it way cheaper without the interference of the big companies that want this high end price. It's still going to be expensive because there's no way around the cost of aluminum right now. It's just ridiculous. That's why I brought up that one ramp that's for sale for, 10 grand. That's a bargain. I mean, there's almost that much just in materials in that dock right now. So that is a great price, but there's still work to be done on the boat. So Alan, you had your hand up first.
Yeah. Have you continued talks with Parbury about what they have in the way of barges? Because if there's a barge that doesn't need complete refurbishing and things, that's a better deal than the boat. And the barge could potentially be reused long-term with the actual public dock. So I'm curious about that.
Yeah. So I do know of all of the barges that he has available. All of them do have work needed. And more importantly, they're all steel. That means ongoing work will always be needed because it's an all steel structure. And that requires tremendous amount more. And the amount of horsepower needed to move it and to pull it on a beach is astronomical compared to a fiberglass boat. So that would be my understanding of it, why I would not want to go with one of those. Still possible, Mary, and I'm going to tie that into what you were asking about. Is this something that we can use later on with the permanent dock? And what we can discuss that. I don't know. I would hope so, but I don't know. I would think that a gangway that's made like the one that we had on the screen here, that's already been pre-engineered, that's already been made professionally, I would assume that it would meet the standards of the county, but who knows whether they would want to incorporate it. I don't know. But Lane, go ahead. You had a question.
Oh, I had a question because, and we discussed this a little bit before, there on both sides of the ferry terminals, there are these big gangways, like that gangway on each side. Is that belong to the county, and what do they use it for?
Yes, they do belong to the county, and they are used for connecting to the dock. Because they didn't need to work on the ramp this year on this side, on Island side, they did not need to use that gangway to reach, because the ramp stayed in the down position the whole time onto the dock that they brought in. So when they can't use that ramp, that's when they bring in that gangway.
So you're talking about just for dry dock?
Yes, that's what they're for. So you could guess how much those cost, and I guarantee you they're more than what we were quoted.
Yes, but I would just put out to the county perhaps that if they're looking to save money, they already have 2 of these sitting around for 51 weeks of the year that are
And,
not.
and I asked Roland Middleton about those. I said, is there any possibility of us working out something where we could use these? And he's like, no, it's all about protecting the county from any lawsuits. And unless it's county employees dealing with them, unless it's county employees operating it, there is no chance as of now, quickly, to be able to use those. I mean, that's a long-term changing the process in my mind. Again, I'm coming back to, I got to find a workaround because they're not going to get it done in a reasonable time.
Right. And again, for us, one reason we capture all of this discussion is it is a question that's going to come up.
Yeah.
So that
For
they're
sure.
like, okay, well, we tried. If you would like to go try,
Yeah. Somebody else, go ahead, have fun with that. And again, I respect and understand why they do that and why they say that and why they have to go that way. And so I want to make their job easier by not pestering them and bugging them and getting nowhere with it, because I know now how the system works. And unless the county council directs them, there's no possibility of us changing their mind. That will never happen. It's an impossibility. Well, unless we get elected to those positions, and I don't particularly like the idea of running for any of those positions. So ain't going to happen on my part. So back to the ReefNet boat, Doc, Mary, some of your questions I want to answer. In regards to future use, I could see it being potentially parked out there by the dock as an addition to it, the public dock someday. I don't know whether or not the parks would say, well, no, because it's not ours, because it's owned by the community or whatever, that we won't allow. I don't know about that, but that would be my vision, is we could still use it because it's going to have island flair. It's going to be an old ReefNet boat. And if it done right, it'll look nice and it could be an attractive device. So that would be my answer to that. On matters of insurance and who's covered, I am of the mindset, when I take my boat over now, I have an insurance policy that wouldn't do anything. If somebody wanted to sue me, they're going to sue me and they're going to get very little out of the insurance company. If they come after me personally, well, that's their choice. They're making the choice to get on the boat. Anybody can sue anybody at any time for any reason. So I'm personally not concerned about it. I don't care. I would like to say whoever has the least to use, that's whose name it should be in. And if they get sued, you can't get blood out of a turnip. So what? In the situation that we want to use it, I'm hoping that most people would just say, man, I am so thankful I had a way to get off the island. I mean, I can't imagine you and Jim ever, even if the thing collapsed into the water, you would still say, hey, they were trying to be good public. They were trying to help people. How could we go after them? And I realize not everybody's like you and Jim, and there are people that would sue at the drop of a hat, but you're going to have to deal with them anyway. So I'm not fearful of that myself. As to ownership, I don't care who owns it. I'm happy to donate all my labor once again, and I'll put money into it too, to make it a reality, and anybody can own it. I don't care. And to the question of can it be licensed? Yes, I already checked that out. Tuesday, I will get a firm price on how much that will cost by the state. It's maximum of about $400, if that, and then you got to buy tabs every year, just as you do for any other boat. So I think that answers most of the questions that you brought up in the email, Mary. Is that correct?
Yeah, and then there's also a thing whereas it probably could not be part of the public dock unless then, because then it would not be a vessel anymore. And because there's like restrictions about you can only have a vessel anchored for 30 days over public tide lands. That's the maximum amount of time that a vessel can be anchored in one place over public tide lands. If it's out there longer, it becomes a derelict vessel. And So I, I am concerned about that. Then the other is, I know that Leica wants to have know who is doing the insuring and stuff like that, since we are still officially a advisory committee for Leica. So Leica needs to be protected insurance wise on something. So I don't think they're going to be real. If Alan or I go to the Leica board and say, well, it's, we're just thinking we're going to rely on people to just be so appreciative and grateful that they won't sue us or anybody.
That will happen.
And I don't think that's going to happen.
That will not happen.
Mhm.
I've already talked to Steve. The one concern that I have to bring up is ownership. That is crucial, because
Mhm.
if we get all the ducks in a row and everything else, and we start asking for money, people are not, and I don't think they should be, sending money to a private individual. It needs to be to something other than a private individual, so that it is, if the money that they go into it from the community stays in the community. So that's something that has to be looked at very closely. Because
So we'd have to have an island association sponsor it and want to take on that responsibility.
not necessarily,
Form an
It-
LLC.
right? Yeah, that's more likely what would have to happen, because the entity would have to have title. It would have to have the in-full insurance. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things. So it probably would wind up being an LLC, not Leica. A Leica that's not what Leica is in the business of doing.
Right. It's
Our
not their
business,
mission.
that's not our mission. It's communications and coordination with agencies. And I'm done.
Lane?
Yeah, we talked a couple weeks ago about having people sign a release. Does anybody think that's viable? I mean, I know we need to talk to a lawyer about it. I don't know at what point we're ready to do that.
In my opinion, I would not waste time. I don't have time to do that while I'm shuttling people back and forth. It just, again, in my mind, people will sue over anything at any time for any reason. And yeah, I could try to mitigate that as much as I possibly can, but the bottom line is it means nothing if they decide to take you to court. So
As long as you're doing it as a private individual, the onus is on you, the onus is on Rob. It just, people have to understand, you are not doing it currently under the umbrella of this committee or Leica.
Correct.
If it happens
Never
again,
have been and never will.
yeah, but anything in the future that happens, you have to make it very clear to the people that this is not Leica and this is not the committee, it's you personally. Because now this information is out there, we have to be careful that people don't make an assumption that's incorrect.
Yeah, it's a sticky situation, right? I mean,
Mhm.
let's say I volunteer to transport somebody from this reef net float. And while they're walking down to the float, they trip and hurt themselves. They're not on my boat yet. Who do they sue? What, the LLC, Chris? Right? I think maybe we do need a legal opinion there. We could talk to David Thorne, or, maybe, I don't know, just get some guidance, some helpful guidance without paying an attorney $300 an hour. but I can.
I've already had an attorney tell me, Dave,
Yeah.
that the best coverage would be an LLC. And Alan, I think you agree with that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you really want to cover your butt, you got to form an LLC.
So I have an LLC. I'm an individual.
All right.
So, I mean, it's easy to start an
Going in
LLC,
Dave's name.
but I mean, how do you, so there's an LLC of what? An organization, a corporation, right? I mean, an LLC is not a corporation, but there's an entity, there's
Mhm.
people involved, so.
Yeah, I think you're right that a lawyer, we should try to get David Thorpe, somebody to give an opinion, like you got an opinion letter from the engineering company.
Yeah,
And I think that's a good step in the right direction. To get a sanity check on, okay, what should we start researching?
I'd be happy to talk to David, you know, as a starting point. And if
That
he
would be great.
run away- if he says run away, then we have some more thinking to do. But yeah, no, it's it's certainly a valid concern, and
And he may have a mousetrap that's, because lawyers always have mousetraps.
Yeah.
So I had another question on this. And Chris, you have a nice way of putting it. You said, go ahead and sue me, you know, sue the guy with the least to lose. But there was another concern I had. I kind of started to voice it the other day, I think. You know, so we can do this float, the reef net boat, and we're allowed to anchor it out in public waters. And as you said, the county won't be able to stop us from putting it near the ferry terminal. But if we drop this ramp, aren't we dropping it on Public Works Beach or Public Parks, Whatcom County Parks Beach?
Mhm.
What does that mean? Are we going to generate heartburn that might compromise our long-term goal of the recreational dock? That's one of my concerns there. And so I got thinking about that a little more. And I said, okay, well, what if we dropped it, you know, we anchor it out and we drop the ramp on private property? Hey, what a convenient place to have it private property, the launch ramp. where you have your forklift, you could drop this thing in the water in a heartbeat. Yeah, it's a longer way round to Gooseberry, but that's private property, right?
Yeah, and that we are planning on putting a dock out there separate from this.
Oh,
That is on my list of things to do before next summer. However, again, it comes back to, in my mind, and what we've talked about is the proficiency of being at Gooseberry back and forth, because that is a long haul around
Right.
the island.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get nearly as many people moved in an emergency situation or a quicker movement situation. That's adds a lot of time.
Right.
Where were you talking about putting the dock?
So at Village Point Marina, at the
Oh,
boat
okay.
ramp there,
I
we've
thought
been
that
meaning to do it
property
for years,
was,
just haven't done it.
I thought that property was up for sale.
It is. Mark is a highly unmotivated particular seller. Those are his words. Highly unmotivated particular seller.
Yeah.
So unless
Okay.
they give him what he wants and unless they agree to keep it exactly the way things are, he won't sell it.
Excellent. Excellent.
Have you had any more conversations with the Granger?
Yes. So he did have a family meeting, and at that family meeting, there were other family members that were concerned about what you guys are talking about, lawsuits, getting sued. He didn't quite understand what I meant. I talked about it with Mary, his sister, a little bit more closer, and explained better what we were talking about. Just a place to put the boat. We're not bringing people on and off there at all. It's just a place to
I
store
get
the
it.
boat.
Mhm.
And she goes, okay, now I understand. We'll bring that up again at the next family meeting. But what happened is in that last ferry outage, guess who was stuck on the other side? So
Elaine Granger.
thank you. Yeah. So I think
John
we're not going to have
Granger's
as much of a
wife.
problem. Yeah. I did
Yeah.
talk to David and Molly Harmony. They would be open to doing something, but they go, boy, that's, our property is a lot more difficult than Granger's. And it's like, well, obviously. So, I mean, that really is the best bet. So I'm just going to keep pushing on that one right now. But, at this point, it might not go anywhere because, if we don't have people that want to do it, then, I'm not going to waste time on it. I'm not going to waste time even pursuing it anymore, because it is very expensive. And you're right. I mean, it's going to be something that will put people at more risk. It's a risk I'm willing to take, but I'm just one person, so it doesn't matter to me. I'll keep on doing what I'm doing regardless. And with the county and us laying it on there, Dave, I would just say better ask forgiveness than it is permission with them. And you notice that we had all of the ferry workers helping people down the rocks.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
can't imagine that it would be any different when we're trying to get people up and down if we had the ramp up there. They're islanders. They're not going to complain about it. There may be some lawyer for the county that will, but
Yeah,
by the time they do anything, we'll be done and out of there.
well,
In my
they can, but they can, if you're laying down a ramp on county property, they do have something to say about it. That's
Yeah.
why I would have liked to also have seen perhaps the Granger sections be available for people getting on and off the boat.
Mhm.
But like, that might be something that, sneak in, little baby steps on that one. Yeah, it's,
Well,
I
that-
still have the question of, it's easy to say, you'll put the ramp at the dock, right near the ramparts or whatever, but it's county property, so they might be able to say, hey, you can't do that. Also, with the ferry crew helping people, I wouldn't bring that up too much, because county could very easily tell the crew, you shall not do that,
It's true.
because they're on duty. So there are considerations here. And we have to just make sure we're aware of it.
So this is one of the reasons I was thinking about the private property scheme, right? I mean, it's not ideal, right?
No,
At the same time, if it's super rough out there, it's gonna be challenging to ferry people anyway, at least in my boat. So, it's longer, but if it's flat water, it's fast. Now, but I just wanted to mention one thing, Chris, because you said, your approach is let him sue me, I'll sue the guy that has little to lose. I think Mark has probably a lot to lose, and he might not go for this idea. But
Yeah.
uh,
No, and that is the major concern amongst most folks, is that possibility of being sued. And I totally understand it. That's why I say, I understand if it doesn't go anywhere. But it was a potential. It's something that could address it right now. It's something that we could make happen. But I understand, the benefit to risk ratio, right? Is there
Yeah.
enough benefit to warrant the risk?
yeah. And like I say, it has to be crystal clear that it's just you and just Rob as private citizens. And even with you saying that, there's still a risk, because I have personal experience with being named in a suit for a situation that I had zero to do with, and I still had to hire a damn lawyer to contact the other lawyer and say, no, I had to pay money for that. So it's something to be careful of.
It's true.
Well, and as for me, I'm not saying we don't move forward with this. I think maybe we do a little more research, we get some opinion and try and protect ourselves.
Yeah, I think it's great that you volunteered to talk to Dave Thorne. And if that could happen before next week, that would be a good thing.
And it's critical that we always remember we are an advisory committee.
Mhm.
That's all we are right now. So I would like to back us up in the agenda to the Zerwicki Brothers meeting.
Oh, yes, yeah, absolutely.
And I was not able to pull his voice out of the weeds in that video to hear what he was saying. I hope he sent you an email with that engineer's information.
He has not yet. I have not received anything. As soon as I get that, I will definitely pass it
All
on.
right, you may have to poke him with a stick. But and next time if we do that, let me record it. Because I have wireless microphones and stick one on each of you. And we'll get
Good.
the audio.
Yeah, the other gentleman should be getting a hold of me this week, I hope. And we'll see. I'll let you guys know as soon as I know when he's able to come out, and we'll go from there. So did you guys not see the video then? So the video didn't work, is what
The
you're saying?
video is useless without his
Okay.
audio.
Yeah,
So
bummer.
if you could recap the
Yeah.
meeting.
So bottom line is the positives that he said is that there was an existing dock, there are existing pilings, so that should make the process better for us. He advised that it's definitely good to get started now because it's only going to get more difficult. He told us that it is going to be a long process, as we already knew. He said more than doable, though. He doesn't see anything that would prevent them from doing the work necessary out there. And whether it's solid rock or whether it's sand, either way, they are capable and more than prepared to do that type of work. He suggested that we deal with the engineer that he is going to send us the contact information for on getting a basic idea of what we want and what that looks like, what it's going to cost to get them to do that. But said, let the county parks department really be the ones to, hire them. We just need a basic introduction, a basic idea to present to the county, and not us, paying to have all this engineering done. If it doesn't go anywhere, what a waste of money that'd be, right? So the
Yeah,
Parks Department would be on them to do that, as far as I understand. I know that in talking to Terry, though, she says the more that we do as a community to make it a reality, the more they're going to be impressed, or the more that they're going to like to see, okay, the citizenry really wants this, and they're making it, happen on their own. They're going to help make this come a reality. So we're just not burdening them with everything. She says that goes a long ways, which makes sense, cooperation with the community that they're working in. So that's the next step, is waiting to get an idea from this engineer, what that's going to look like, that relationship between us and the engineer and the county. So that's all part of making that proposal to the Parks Department, right? So that's what we're
Yeah.
in. I'll try to get the same thing from the other contractor, see what he says, if there's any difference of opinion, if he has a different engineer, whatever. So that's where I'm at on it. Mary?
yeah. What sort of a dock, what sort of thing were they talking about for the pier? Were they talking about coming from street level out and then a ramp, and then how far out would you have to go to get to regular water? Or are we talking about using the stairway and making a lower pier? If the pier is more expensive, the taller it is, or if,
We didn't talk about any of that. We talked
Okay.
about in very general terms. Those kind of questions would have to be answered by the engineer. We
okay,
didn't ask those. We just asked, is this feasible? And the guys thought it was.
okay,
And even down to, okay, if there are creosote piers still there, they could pull them, which is better for the environment. Yada
Yes.
yada. He was talking in terms of what they were capable of, but he said that when it comes to what they do, it's determined by the engineer. And he suggested that we get a hold of this engineer that he mentioned, and none of us wrote it down because we thought we had a video, and to see if that engineer could give us some clues along the line of how we should be proceeding, what it might cost to have a marine engineer do this, that kind of stuff. So the more information like that we gather, yes, the county parks will be happy with.
Alan, I don't want to miss that. That sounds like something we might include in this proposal. If you're saying that these creosote pilings, are an environmental issue and they can be removed, we need to include that, right, in this. Because that's just yet another benefit.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good benefit.
Yeah, in fact, I mean, that's one of the reasons Heritage Trust went to the expense to remove so much that they did
Okay.
down at the new preserve.
Yeah.
And they have even more of that stuff. So, yeah, it's a good environmental thing. And he was talking about, you know, they can chase them. I mean, there's all sorts of options, but an engineer has to say, this is the best way to do this, or these are the options. He gave us a name of somebody that could potentially give us some ballparks and some guidance on what kind of research to do and things like that. So we're hoping to get the email from this young man who's very nice, very cooperative. And if we don't hear from him this week, we should. Chris, you have his information. You'll
Yeah.
hope.
You'll be getting the text tomorrow.
Yay.
Yeah, because text responses take time with that company.
Yeah, no, I think it's real important to do as much as we can so that when we present to the Parks Department, we actually have kind of what we as a community foresee as the dock. And I think that's why I was just kind of asking, you know, would this be like a ramp starting from the thing going down to just a float that's suspended by?
I mean,
On
he did say the longer
Between
the ramp.
pilings.
Yeah, he did say the longer the ramp, the more money. Well, that's an obvious. But I mean, the question I think would be for us and for parks would be ease of use of getting down there. You know, it's most people can, if they're not ill, make it down those stairs. But if you've got a situation where it's a medical emergency and somebody needs to be assisted down, a ramp is better with a shallow incline. The other good call for it being a street level start of a ramp is also for ADA.
Mm.
And Parks Department is usually concerned about ADA.
Mhm.
And their existing park is not at all ADA compliant.
Mm.
You have to go step down to get onto the deck and then go down the stairs. There's no ramping. So that's another little pin to push.
Mhm.
Yeah, make it accessible like that. Boy, that's a great thought,
Mhm.
Alan.
It's a major hot topic.
Yeah, good.
So from my viewpoint, we're kind of in a hurry up and wait pattern on the public dock part until we get more information once again, which we're gathering little bit by little bit, but it's all we can do. I don't know where else to go from there on that. Kind of got to hurry up and wait. If you guys have some sketches that you want to make of what you think would be a nice pier and dock, you know, never hurts to have ideas.
Mhm.
I have a
Yeah.
I have a feeling that getting like a picture of an existing one, and now Mary, I think you had Alan post that, and look, maybe it was from the cruiser guide to the San Juan Islands about all the different public docks around the island. So there's quite a few pictures there, quite a few pictures. I was looking at Susha, and it is actually not Echo Bay that has some of those piers. There's
No,
some
it's Fossil Bay.
Yeah, right. So it could be maybe a couple of us could get together in human real life person and go through some of those and pull out some that are kind of representative of, okay, this one started high, stayed high. This one started high, moved one level. This one is 3 level, something like that. Because I think that we need it to discuss with the rest of all other islanders. First of all, much less to have an idea when we go to Parks and Rec.
Alan, who are you with Photoshop?
Well, I don't use Photoshop, but I'm good with what I use. Yes.
I was gonna
But-
say, if we found a representative
Oh, yeah, that's easy.
that we like and we could, you know, make it look like a reasonable image,
Mhm.
That'd
And
be,
surely all of the parks documents for those design exist. I can't find them right now, but they must
They
exist.
do, they
They're
do.
obviously
Oh,
public
yeah.
information.
Yeah, and there's, you know, I know some of the docks, the public docks in the parks, some of them are very, very, very steep ramps, like the one on Stewart for the one at Reed Harbor is a very steep dock because it's coming up really a big one, and it's even steeper than what we have. It's like coming off of a cliff on the side of the building, whereas the one or
Mm.
the one at Mesa is more kind of, I think, more of our height difference. But yeah, too bad it's like this season of the year. I guess if we get a really nice day, we could make a field trip over to a few of the
Yeah,
state marine parks.
I would still like to do that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, I'd be glad to take people, but my boat is very, very primitive. As Dave can
I'd take it, but
attest.
this time of year, you'd all freeze.
Yeah, you'd freeze. It's cold.
Well, I mean, it's possible that we could still do that road trip, Mary, to some places.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
And take pictures very specific to what we are looking for. In other
Right.
words, side views.
Yes.
And things like that. Um, and if you can come up with some that might be potential to look at,
Okay.
we could also do a Google search to see what photos Google has available. We can't use them per se because of copyright, but it could give us some ideas and then see if we could make it a point of, okay, these particular ones we want to really investigate in person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I was doing is during the recent rotten weathers, when I have had to go over on the ferry, I have been really looking at the docks, the floats on the Gooseberry side.
Mhm.
And I don't know how many of you have been paying more attention to those if any of you have made the ride over and watched those docks, like what they're doing. They're a very low freeboard dock.
Yep.
So I think a lot of and I think that really helps them. And then the waves just can break right over the top of them. They'd be horrible for wanting to get off there in rough weather. But I think they work and they've stayed attached there for a long time.
Yep.
And they're just basically docks they have like big iron loops that go around the pilings
Mhm.
on both ends, but they can move up and down with the tides and stuff. And I don't know. I'm really impressed that how long they've lasted there.
Well, the one is a new one because the previous one took off.
Got at Gooseberry, I think the one on the gas dock side, where the ramp side has been replaced.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's brand new.
Yeah. Because it is that's what we would be asking a dock that's in there permanently to
Mhm,
be able to do.
mhm.
And if you look at the engineering, the suggested dock configurations that were put forth on the Skagit County
Mhm.
document that I forward, they have 3 different dock configurations. And the one that looks the strongest is the one that is on vertical piles, probably steel, probably with rollers on them and collars that would allow the dock to float, kind of almost like those donuts that are on our breakwater dock.
Right.
But that was like the one that was real expensive too. But I don't know. So we have to keep in mind when we're doing this, if we're gonna get something that's a year-round dock, it's gotta be able to survive that. So,
We brought that up with the Zerwicki guy and
mhm,
made mention of the fact that in some of the pictures that we've seen of some of the dock works, that they have actual docks that not only have what you're talking about, Mary, but also lift up out of the water completely via winches. So when
Mhm.
storms do come, you're able to get it completely out of harm's way.
that would be good. That would be
For
good.
that area,
And-
that's really the only option.
Yep. And that would be a really good way to do that. And that's gonna be real expensive,
Mhm.
but yeah, but I think that, what I've had personal experience with was a dock on a floating dock that had a ramp that had an A-frame at the end of a pier that lifted the ramp up. And then the dock was, just kind of anchored and floated. And then when it got too rough, they would completely disconnect one end of the dock to allow the dock to ride the waves as easy as possible. And then they could reconnect that one end. But that was on the lee side of Catalina Island, but it can get real gnarly there when they have easterly winds, and they do get easterly winds there. So,
Something that is on those concepts that they posted were also breakwaters or wave barriers.
mhm,
So we're talking like that might, like without mentioning that. And that's something that I think that if and when county parks gets into this, that's something that they should definitely look at.
mhm.
Some sort of a wave break or, yeah, they're calling it here on concept day, a wave barrier with float.
Yep. And the difficulty on that one is that particular site is safe, is pretty protected from easterlies and westerlies. I'm sorry, northerlies and westerlies, but it really gets hammered southerlies. And our site can get hammered in northeasterlies and southerlies. The only side that are on that Gooseberry side, the only place that you have protection is from west winds. And so it's, yeah, you have to think about all of those things.
That comes back to to that marine engineer type thing. And if we
Yeah.
could just get some hints to Heloise from him without money, that would help us do some more research, I think, to then present to parks.
Yeah, we've got steps
Yeah.
ahead of us and we're in the waiting pattern, like we've said. Lots of
Yeah.
discussion.
Yeah.
down the road.
Okay.
Well, is there anything else that we need to cover tonight? Just like I say, I think we're in a holding pattern.
We want to, I was just kind of looking maybe by the end of November, say that folks will get together and start identifying some locations that we think would be good models. I'm just trying to think of breaking up the tasks, so
Sure.
working on some things and kind of stretching it out to.
I'd be glad to work with someone else on doing that. I think I have a pretty good idea and familiarity with most of the state park docks, and I've probably visited not all, but most of the public docks in the San Juans. Chris or Dave or Lane, would any of you guys like to work on it?
I would love to work with you on it from sort of the opposite is, we've only been here 2 months and I've seen exactly one, maybe Orcas.
Okay,
Orcas Island, that's the only other island I've been to.
sure.
Well,
wish-
do hit me up if there's a day that it looks like weather is supposed to be really nice and you guys want to go for a boat ride. I'm up for that. But just, it's got to be a really nice calm day and then you got to dress warm.
Yeah, I can dress for success. Hey,
I-
man, I am a sailor. The only time I go, I have been out in 25 knots, 30 knot winds. And
All
I've
right.
got good foul weather gear.
Well, we could definitely hit, the outer islands here, Mesha, Susha, and Patos, and
Mhm.
on one day, and you could do all of Orcas another day. So every dock, we can move pretty
Yeah.
fast.
Lopez, yeah, and Stewart would be really good because Stewart has actually 3 docks on Stewart Island. There's state park docks, plus there's the launch, the ramp, and plus there's the public dock that's on the other side of Prevost Harbor, across from the state park dock. So,
Yeah. those are
and
nice.
mhm.
Yeah, November weather can get interesting, but I'm game.
Yeah, it can get really interesting. I'd really want to check the weather real close.
Yeah. But that's a good possibility. But I think we could start at least from the photos that we've got
Mhm.
and try to do some
Sure.
online, more search for photos and do that.
And I think part of it too is just how we're going to organize it, Alan. So if you imagine us
Yes.
giving a presentation to other
Yes.
islanders, it would help us just to have that build that library of our own.
Right. Yes, yeah, because we're going to need that kind of stuff, I think, anyway, if we do a poll to the public,
Exactly. You need to
Yeah.
have pictures. Yep.
because
Yeah,
not everybody's going to understand unless they got a picture that in a diagram, maybe both, type of thing. So
Yeah.
the more we can grab in the way of data and materials now, the better.
yeah. And the other thing is many of the state park docks are pulled out during the winter months
Okay.
because they will get trashed in certain wind directions.
Mhm.
So the state does pull those out. I don't know where they store them, but. Okay, but yeah, I'd be glad to work with people on that in the next couple, over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I don't have every day, but I'd be glad to work with people.
This is the trash situation.
Yeah,
Wow.
This is what they're still working on getting replacement. They had enough money to do this first phase where they got engineering and they got all this the topographic and bathymetric and stuff. But now what they're waiting for is funding to actually do it. But they were able to get successful funding to do this much of this report. A very good report. I recommend everybody look at it. If they haven't.
All right. Well, if
Do-
nothing
well-
else,
so what do we want for next meeting? Or do we want to maybe go for a couple of weeks without meeting, or I don't know.
The only other thing, I talked to you guys briefly about a deployment plan, thinking about a deployment plan that will take us quite a while. And what the first step for me was starting quite a giant list of all the potential resources that might be deployed in one way or another on Lummi, Gooseberry, and on out. And so I've been working on that, but it'd be helpful probably, and my husband's helping with this with a deployment plan, and thought maybe Chris, I'm assuming from fire, and I don't know if any of the rest of you have ever been part of an incident command structure. You've had a first responder kind of thing. It's following that exact structure, but it's trying to make it an island centric presentation. So we were hoping maybe to get a small subset of people to talk with that about and make sure that it is in framework that makes sense to you guys, but you think would also make sense to other islanders. So that doesn't have to be a full meeting right now, because I think it would help to have a small group just to,
I would send a message out to all the members, the official members of the committee. We obviously don't have them all here tonight.
Yeah.
And for various and sundry reasons, and health included. And tell them what you're proposing and see if they have any experience. And to work on a small subset.
oh, I see. Okay. Okay. That's a good idea.
Yeah,
And
poll-
Chris-
And I'm
poll-
open. I'm open anytime, Lane, to a phone call or anything like that. I deal with
Okay.
ICS all the time at the fire department.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have to go
Yeah.
through so many stinking classes for that. It's crazy.
Hey, Chris,
Yeah.
Does Whatcom County, all of their emergency management is not underneath fire department, it's underneath the sheriff's department?
It's a combination of agencies that have come together, especially during this time of COVID. And they are all interagencies trying to work together. And that is part of the ICS process within Whatcom County. Matter of fact, I'm going to training here December something. I think December 7th, I have a huge class, 3 days of it, dealing with this very situation put on by Whatcom County just for this matter. So it's all interagency. They're all working together, trying to refine that, because there's been a lot of problems in the past of improper communication between them.
Well, one thing I looked up, because my sister-in-law just retired as the emergency management coordinator for Butte County down in California. And she has dealt with recently, like the Paradise Fire and,
Wow.
the federal EMS response, FEMA. And I guess she tried to look up the Whatcom County's emergency management plan, and she was just kind of telling me, yours is under the sheriff's department. And I looked on the sheriff's web page and I was looking through that. They have no plans
Nothing.
on Lummi Island at all.
Mhm.
And so that is something I think that's not really the purveyor, it's not really part of what this committee is about. But like, boy, that scared the living bejesus out of me. And Lane, you and Sandy Fukumoto both brought that up at the very first meeting. And that's really scary that our county doesn't have, or our community is not included in that. And so, Chris, if you can follow on that one and convince me that there really is something, I would appreciate it, because I'm losing sleep over that one now.
Well, my opinion and my personal viewpoint, not as a lieutenant in the fire department, but just as a citizen, is when it comes down to it hitting the fan out here, we are on our own. But we have a lot of folks that are very talented, and I have no doubt are going to step up during those times. And I don't have any personal plans of relying upon anything off this island for any help.
Mhm.
well, I think part of, from my perspective was, I think in due diligence, we keep people informed. We try to get as many partners as you can. And one reason for that is the broader base. I think you start then finding more and more benefits. Yes, it doesn't sound like this is a public doc committee mission, and yet on one level, getting people on and off the island, that's what we're talking about.
Yes.
You got it.
Try to
Huge piece.
leverage that in every way we can.
That's
and
right.
try to-
When the bridge is out.
And whatever
Yep.
our committee is doing, trying to convince others, like the fire department and LifeAct and the evacuation team and the county and the sheriff's department and the search and rescue. I mean, there are a lot of resources that you can tap. And the better informed we are about them and the better informed they are about us, I think we have a higher probability of a successful coordination. And over time, building more and more bridges.
Mhm.
Lane, one of the people you should definitely talk to, because this is right up his alley, it's what he's done for this state of Alaska, is Greg Paul.
Brad Paul?
Greg, Greg.
Oh, Greg Hall. Okay,
Greg Paul.
Greg Hall.
That this is right in his wheelhouse. So talk, and he's not been feeling good, which is why he's not here. He's still battling that blasted rhinovirus that he has. So, but he would be a person to talk for
Okay,
your subset.
that's great.
All right, you guys are wonderful. Thanks for making time once again, and we're progressing.
What did we decide?
Yes.
So next week, maybe just maybe next week we can just choose a topic.
Why don't we find out what kind of information we get
Let's-
coming in this week? And I'll go ahead and send that out as soon as I know something. And if we don't have to meet, we won't. And if we need to cover stuff, we will.
I think it will be good to meet next week because I think we could put like a report back from the Life Act meeting.
Yes.
Oh,
I think
That's
that would
perfect.
be a
Right
super
there.
thing to put on the agenda for next week. Report back,
Great.
this is what the info that we have. And then where do we go from here with this?
That's what I was
I'd like
gonna
to get
suggest.
that on the agenda.
That's what the same thing I was going to suggest is the timing of that would be right. Because
Yeah.
we'll have feedback of what happened at Life Act, what they've said. Yeah. And that's something we should look at and
Yeah,
process
And-
at that meeting.
yeah. So any of you that can come to that meeting and be extra ears, that would be great. You're always excused from Wednesday night meetings, Chris. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
If I can, before we adjourn or anything, can I make one more comment, please? Please, please, please. One topic with a proper subject per message. Don't tag on. It took forever to find some stuff recently. We're looking through a message thread that had all sorts of topics in it, that had the same title all the time. It's so much better when you're sending out any kind of new topic. Don't tag it on, start from scratch. Create a group contact list like I have, some of us others have, and create a new message. It really helps us when we have to go back and find stuff.
Alan, I'm going to tell you ahead of time, I'm going to send stuff directly to you then by itself. Because I'm not going to take the time to figure out how to make a group list. It just ain't going to happen on
Okay.
my end. So I will
Oh,
send it
I-
to you personally, then you can.
I
deal with it.
have no problem with that one. Because it really, when you go back to find something, it makes it really
Yeah.
hard.
Mhm.
Really hard. And I have no problem buffering that for you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, you guys. Wonderful. You all rock. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.
End recording.